Right now, as you are watching this video, there is a very high probability that your Toyota or Lexus is slowly dripping oil onto your driveway, and someone is already counting the money they plan to take from you. If you own a Tacoma, a Highlander, a Camry, a 4Runner, or a Lexus RX or ES powered by the 3.5-liter V6, and you have ever seen a dark, greasy stain forming near the front of your engine, stop everything. Do not call your mechanic yet. Do not schedule that dealership appointment, because what I am about to tell you will save you $3,500, and it will take you less time to fix than it takes to drive to the shop. The automotive industry has built an entire ecosystem of fear around engine oil leaks. They know that the moment you see oil, your brain goes to the worst possible place: blown gasket, cracked block, engine destruction. A, and they have spent decades making sure you stay in that place of fear, because fear is profitable. A panicked Toyota owner is worth thousands of dollars to a dealership service department. A Toyota owner who understands their own engine is worth exactly $0 to them. That is why this video exists, and that is exactly why they do not want you to watch it. Let me take you inside the Toyota 2GR FE engine. The 2GR FE is a 3.5-liter, naturally aspirated DOHC V6 that Toyota introduced in 2005. It became the backbone of Toyota and Lexus lineups for nearly 2 decades, powering everything from the Camry to the Lexus GS 350. By any engineering standard, this is a magnificent engine. It is over-engineered, extremely robust, and with basic maintenance, it will outlast the body of the car around it. Toyota built this engine to run for 300,000 miles, and it regularly does exactly that. But inside its elegant design lives a small, humble component that the dealership network has quietly discovered is their golden ticket, and that component is the variable valve timing with intelligence system, which Toyota calls VVTI. The mechanism Toyota uses to physically move the cam timing is called a cam phaser, a hydraulic actuator bolted directly onto the end of each camshaft. When the engine computer decides it wants to adjust cam timing, it sends a signal to a solenoid valve, and that solenoid directs pressurized engine oil into chambers inside the phaser, physically rotating the camshaft slightly relative to the crankshaft. The oil pressure in this circuit runs between 40 and 60 pounds per square inch during normal operation. Now here is the critical detail. The 2GR FE routes oil to the VVTI system through an external oil supply line, a small metal tube that runs on the outside of the front of the engine. This line is bolted to the engine using a banjo bolt, which is a hollow fastener with a hole drilled through its center, allowing oil to flow from the main gallery into the attached line. At every banjo bolt sealing face sits a small soft metal ring called a crush washer. On the Toyota 2GR FE, this washer measures roughly 14 millimeters in diameter. It costs, at retail, approximately $3. When a banjo bolt is torqued down, the pressure causes the soft metal washer to deform plastically, flowing into microscopic surface imperfections on both faces and creating a perfectly oil-tight metal-to-metal seal. It is one of the oldest and most reliable sealing methods in precision engineering, used in hydraulic braking systems and aerospace circuits. The seal relies entirely on that one-time plastic deformation, meaning once it has been compressed, it cannot seal again if the bolt is disturbed. Over years and heat cycles, the accumulated thermal expansion and contraction eventually causes micro-leakage at the washer face. That 40 to 60 pounds per square inch of oil pressure is more than enough to force a thin mist of hot oil through a microscopic gap. Now pay close attention, because this is the entire anatomy of the scam. That leaking banjo bolt sits directly above the engine timing cover, a large cast aluminum panel that seals the entire front of the engine using liquid RTV silicone, a technology Toyota transitioned to during the mid-2000s. The tiny mist of pressurized oil from the failed washer does not drip straight down. It atomizes and sprays outward, contacting the face of the timing cover directly below. The oil wets the seam, where the timing cover meets the block. Road dust and grime accumulate. Within weeks, that seam is packed with dark, greasy residue that looks precisely, completely, and undeniably like a failed timing cover RTV seal. The pattern is identical. The location is identical. A technician who glances under the hood for 30 seconds will point directly at that timing cover and tell you with full confidence that your seal has let go. This is where the shift to RTV silicone becomes weaponized. Before 2005, Toyota engines used physical stamped or fiber gaskets to seal timing covers. When those failed, the failure was localized and obvious. Liquid RTV creates a better seal overall, but it introduced a perception vulnerability. Consumers and less experienced technicians cannot visually evaluate a factory RTV joint. The seam just looks like a seam. There is no physical gasket to hold, inspect, or measure. That ambiguity is pure gold for a service department. They point at the seam, say the RTV has catastrophically failed, and propose an engine-out timing cover reseal that genuinely requires 20 or more flat-rate labor hours and costs between $2,800 and $3,800. Most customers have no reference to question that diagnosis. It sounds technical, it looks damning, and the credit card comes out. Fleet maintenance data makes the lie statistically undeniable. Multiple independent fleet operators who transitioned their 2GRFE maintenance to include proactive VVTI banjo washer replacement found that the incidence of apparent timing cover oil leaks dropped by over 90%. When fleets documented their actual leak sources using oil-safe UV dye tracing, the dye appeared at the banjo bolt fitting on the VVTI line in case after case. The timing cover RTV was clean and intact. Internal technical communications circulating among Toyota master technicians acknowledged that the VVTI banjo washer is a known wear item on high-mileage 2GRFE engines and that the appropriate response is inspection and replacement of the sealing washers, not an engine-out reseal. That information never made it into the standard service advisor script because a $3 washer does not fund a service department. 20 phantom labor hours absolutely does. Here is exactly what you are going to do today. You need one thing: a pair of aluminum or copper crush washers, 14mm outer diameter, 10mm inner diameter. T. Search for Toyota Banjo Bolt Sealing Washer or M10 Banjo Crush Washer at any auto parts retailer or online supplier. Buy 2. They cost pennies. Open your hood and stand at the passenger side of the engine. The alternator is a large cylindrical component bolted to the lower front of the engine on that side, driven by the accessory belt. Reach behind and slightly above the alternator. You are feeling for a small metal tube running from the engine block upward toward the front of the engine. This is the external VVTI oil supply line. Follow it to its upper banjo bolt, a 17mm bolt head where the tube's fitting attaches to the engine block. Before touching anything, thoroughly clean the entire surrounding area with a shop rag. Clean the bolt, the fitting, the top of the timing cover, and the surrounding seam until you see bare metal. This is essential because it removes all accumulated evidence so that after the repair you can verify with certainty whether any new oil appears. Make sure the engine is completely cold. With a 17mm wrench or socket, carefully loosen the banjo bolt counterclockwise. Position a clean rag below because a small amount of residual oil will weep out. Once fully removed, you will see the banjo fitting sandwiched between 2 crush washers. Remove both old washers and look at them. They are visibly thinner and slightly wider than new washers because the metal has already been fully deformed. They are done. Discard them. Place 1 new crush washer on each side of the banjo fitting. Reinstall the bolt by hand and torque it to approximately 20 Newton meters, which is about 15 foot-pounds. That is roughly as firm as tightening a spark plug. Snug, but not aggressive. The new washers need to deform just enough to seal. Do not over-tighten, as the oil gallery threads are cut into aluminum and will strip if abused. Do not wipe the area again after installation. Start the engine, bring it fully to operating temperature over 5 minutes, shut it off, let it cool for 30 minutes. And then inspect the banjo area and the entire timing cover face with a bright flashlight. If you cleaned thoroughly before the repair, you will find 0 new oil anywhere near the timing cover seam. The leak is gone. $3, 12 minutes. They built this system deliberately. They train service advisors to point at the most expensive possible component and to never mention the inexpensive one sitting directly in front of them. The customer does not know what a banjo bolt is. The customer sees oil, hears the word seal, and hands over a credit card. That is the business model, and it has worked for years because the information gap between the person behind the service counter and the person in the waiting room has been enormous. Today, that gap is gone for you. Share this video right now, not as a favor to me, but as protection for every Toyota and Lexus owner you know. Send it to your neighbor with the Highlander. Send it to your family member who just received a $4,000 leak quote and is trying to figure out how to pay for it. This information turns a $3,000 repair bill into a $3 parts run, and every share is one more person the dealership cannot exploit. And before you go, I need to warn you about something bigger. Next week, I am exposing a scam built directly into the transmission service schedule of these same vehicles, involving a sealed-for-life fluid designation that Toyota engineered to fail at a precise mileage, creating what looks like a spontaneous catastrophic transmission failure but is actually a planned obsolescence event written into the factory documentation. The internal engineering data on this one makes today's timing cover scam look like loose change. Hit the notification bell right now because that video will face pressure immediately after it goes live, and you cannot afford to